Some facts about him. He was born in 1933 in Bombay, but he was born to a Roman Catholic Goan family. And Goa, as you may or may not know, is a small state in India on the west coast towards the south, which was for 450 years a Portuguese colony. It stopped being a colony in 1961. I think it's 1961, which is not, you know, in terms of Ribeiro, that's around the time that he was at his paintings. So Goa is full of Christian symbolism, churches and cathedrals. And that comes through in his work and had a powerful influence on him, although he was working in London for most of his life. But you'll see the spires here, domes, arches, in many, many of his works. We're showing a fraction of his works here, I'll say that again many times, but you'll see these spires that are influenced by his Goan roots. You'll also see in the heads, there's only one that we can really point out here, but the second from the left, a sense of the religious Christian iconography. The one second from the left could be an image of Christ. He often didn't title his paintings, but it could be an image of Christ. Often these images are quite angst-ridden. They're anguished, harsh. The landscapes show thorns and sort of a barren and very harsh black lines. And that's what makes them very powerful, I think. So his childhood, his schooling was in India, and he came to London in the early 50s, and he was going to be an accountant. But he stayed with his older brother, his older half-brother, who's the artist Francis Newton Sousa, 10 years older than him, who was already practicing as an artist in London, living in North London. He stayed with him. We're pretty sure, very influenced by him to think about becoming an artist. He went to St. Martin's School of Art for 3 years, from 51 to 53, and by the late 50s he decided to jack in accountancy and make it as an artist. And he was very successful very quickly. He had, in 1961, he had his first one-man show in India, and rave reviews, a lot of attention. He was in a touring exhibition that went around Europe, America, Canada. He was commissioned by Tata in India to paint a 12-foot long mural. He was shown by some of the most fashionable galleries in London. We can name them the Everyman, the Mount Gallery, the Crane Coleman Gallery, the Nicholas Treadwell Gallery. Nicholas Treadwell is coming to give a talk this time next week, next Thursday week. So he made it, early 30s, there he was, works like this, and he was on the map as an artist. But what did he do then? He, instead of really kind of sitting back, and you could say he could make a nice living selling these paintings, producing more of them, he didn't. He chose to experiment, to question, to explore in technique, in style, in technique in particular with a material called PVA, which is, you'll see it on, if you look at the two huge paintings there, you'll see it in many paintings, but the two huge paintings on the left, you'll see these lovely pools of sort of enamel-like colour. And this is polyvinyl acetate. And he did a huge amount of experimenting with that long before these paints were used by artists. He wasn't recognised for it, but they were the forerunners of acrylics, which every artist, many artists use today the world over, contemporary artists. He experimented with it because he wanted to experiment with colour, but also because he was impatient. He was a fast, accomplished artist, and he didn't want to wait for the oil painting to dry, so that was another reason for experimenting with it. But, you know, he didn't follow a path of fame and fortune. He wasn't necessarily fashionable. He was incredibly energetic at promoting Indian artists that were working in London at the time, lectured for the Commonwealth Institute, was clearly an extraordinary person. He died in 2010, Christmas Day, and he left behind a huge body of work. This is a fraction of what he left behind. He died surrounded by his paintings, as I understand it, from Marcia. And Marcia is the kind of person who's incredibly organised. So she has been cataloguing, and without her, my job would have been incredibly difficult. So there's a lovely quote, which I might remember in my head, from his earliest show about the heads. And it is something like, now it's about power. He saw power as the genesis of all evil and chose to sort of see it embodied in the individual. And I think I feel that reviewer, we don't know his name, of his exhibition in 1961, looking at some of these paintings, sort of caught that. But I would ask you to look closely at some of the small ones. It's easy to look at the big ones, but look closely at the small ones, and you will see this wonderful skill with line, colour, and scale, so that in a small painting he can produce an incredible sense of drama.